Texans Training Camp Live. Marc, Vandermeer, John Harris with you, like the man said. And as promised, right out of the chute, we are joined by General Manager Nick Caserio. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. 21st for the Texans, 22nd for myself. So
nice.
Wow.
There's some symmetry there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we address something right out of the chute here first? We have to address this. So I go to my closet.
You look much better than I do.
And I bring out the vest knowing that the GM of the Texans is on here, and I'm like, okay, I got to pay homage. I wear the vest. I come out here, no vest.
In the office, more of an in-the-office attire as opposed to a practice field.
Okay.
So we'll set that premise.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, yeah, but how about you have the long sleeves on, which is good for the sun protection, and I really need to do this. I mean, my gosh. And you have the vest and another shirt on, of course. You're not going to go vest with no sleeves because that would be a little too
that's showing off too much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so, Nick, what are we looking at today? You mentioned OTA-type practices the first 2 days and the ramp-up. So when will we see the team in pads? How will that process go?
That'll be Monday. So really this is almost an extension and a continuation of some of the things that we did in the spring. You have certain time parameters that are in place as a part of the NFL's protocol. So we'll get a lot of work done. It'll be similar to, I would say, the spring practice. There'll be a lot of emphasis on team. The contact will be minimal, so it'll be more about timing, more about execution, more about communication, and more about those types of things.
Nick, I know you addressed this, and we just want to discuss it with you, John Mechie. The unfortunate news that we got from him on Sunday before guys reported. How, obviously, you spoke very eloquently about him and getting him back. From a football perspective, how does it impact the receivers, if at all?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think even when you start training camp, there's things that could happen. You can have an injury during the course of training camp or something that comes up that might cause you to change course or do something a little bit different. So the focus will be on his recovery from a health standpoint, his health and well-being. That'll be the emphasis. Football is secondary. We'll address it on our end from a football standpoint, but that's what training camp is for, to see what players can take advantage of their opportunities and put them in a position for potentially a bigger role this season.
From a football standpoint, I guess we, on this side of the table, label guys slot receiver or not, and I know players can do multiple things, but you want them to be multiple, right? You want them to be versatile.
I think it's a great point, Mark. You don't want to necessarily just – if a player only does one thing – that's okay, but then he better excel at that one particular thing. So the way the formationing goes, sometimes the formation is reduced, sometimes he's on the perimeter, sometimes you're inside the formation, but you're inside the formation. It might be more of a schematic type thing. So I think the emphasis is more on football players and what they can do and what are some of their strengths and how you deploy those assets. Some of it is really situationally based as well. When you look at where the league is, I'd say a multi-defensive back league, so even against 12 personnel or Detroit, or even against some regular teams are playing some nickel defense, so it's just a matter of who's in that extra spot, whether it's a linebacker, whether it's a secondary player. And then when you get to multiple receivers, 11 personnel, you're going to have, so how many times you're going to be in 11? Where are your receivers deployed? A lot of receivers are going to move around the formation. Some of it is scheme-based, some of it is situationally based. So I would say you don't necessarily want to pigeonhole a player into one particular area. I would say that's really more situational specific.
Nick, when you think back a year ago and first training camp here in Houston for you, when you think about where this team is now, where the program organization is now, is it where you're wanting it to go? Is it on track with where you wanted it to be when you were starting building this last year?
Yeah, I think the best way to approach it is we're excited about the 2022 season. I think the commitment, the work ethic, the attitude of our players throughout the course of the offseason has been good. So now we want to transfer that in here into training camp and see if we can continue to extend that. So ultimately it'll be about performance. It'll be about execution. So from that perspective, I think we're excited about what's in front of us. So I think now the focus is going out there each day and trying to improve as an overall team in all three phases.
What about install versus improvement and fundamental work this time of year, particularly early in camp before you get into that second week and toward the first preseason game?
No, it's a great question, Mark. Right now it's a little bit more install, get the calls in, and then next week there'll be a little bit more of a focus on individual specific techniques, because when you put the pads on, it really you're talking about the running game, and I would say you're talking about pass protection and tackling and finishing plays. So hand placement, body position, leverage, all the fundamentals that going into being a good football player. We'll have the opportunity to work on those things really starting Monday when we haven't had the chance to work on those going back to, let's call it when we were in pads, which was back in January. So that'll be the next step in the overall phase of a player's development. And you'll see more one-on-ones. You'll see O-line, D-line one-on-ones. You'll see receiver, defensive back one-on-one, where you can actually work on some of those fundamental techniques. So Then you take the individual techniques and you apply them within a team setting. And then the scheme, we'll have our playbook in, if you will, over the first couple weeks, 85, 90% of it. And then you'll pick and choose what you'll use in the preseason games. And then once you get to the regular season, it'll be about specific things against that particular opponent and how we're going to use the resources we have.
You know I'm going to ask about rookies. You just know it. Every conversation with
favorite
us,
topic.
I'm sticking it in there, the rookies. But I think it's important at training camp because they've never been through this. They might have done it at Auburn or LSU or a big-time program, but it's a different feel. I was talking to JJ earlier, one of our interns, and he was like, whoa, this is different than OTAs. How do you help the rookies and even some guys that are going through their first training camp? How do you help them manage this?
Absolutely. It's about education really more than anything else and having the resources available in the building. So we have a lot of people in the building that kind of help facilitate their movement throughout the course of the day. If they have a question, well, hopefully we can provide them an answer. I think the big thing with any player, specifically rookies, is just establishing a consistent routine each day. Even within the context of you're going to practice, then you're going to have an off day. So what do I do on my off day to maximize my recovery? There's some extra work I can do. I can anticipate what the install is going to be for the next day. So it's really more about personal accountability and commitment and your work ethic and your attitude and just being smart and diligent with the time that you have. You just have more free time as an NFL player, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have less time. So you have to just use your time wisely and figure out a routine that works for you so that you can optimize your performance each day.
Nick, the old cliche is this time of year, defense should be ahead of the offense because they're looking to destroy something and the offense is looking to create something. Where do you stand on that? How accurate is that?
Yeah, the reality is each side of the ball is going to make good plays and we're going to have bad plays. And so the idea behind practice is go out there, run plays, execute the plays, go back, review them. If there was an error or a gap, let's figure out what happened, understand why, and then here's what we're going to do to fix it. And then those good plays kind of keep stringing them together. But when you're working amongst yourself, somebody's going to have the advantage on a particular play. If we turn the ball over, then it's either the defense created that turnover, they took the ball away, to use Lovey's term, or offensively we gave it to them. So if we gave it to them, all right, we have to be more conscious of taking care of the football. So you're looking at everything. You're looking at both sides. I think from Lovey's perspective, even though he's calling the defense, he's still looking at the offense and trying to look at the overall execution, and then you factor in the kicking game. So each day, something good's going to happen, something bad's going to happen. We're going to have to get something fixed. What you don't want to do is start to see the same mistakes over and over and over and have error repeaters. That's what you want to avoid.
How important is Monday when you put the pads on, especially for the big fellas, when you haven't seen them? Like you said, you haven't seen big guys in pads since January. Now all of a sudden we're almost all the way to August. What's the biggest thing about day one in pads coming up Monday?
Absolutely. That's real football. I mean, that's where you can measure. You can work on blocking techniques. You can work on double teams. You can work on your hand placement. You can work on leverage. Leverage, body control, body position. That's how football is played. Can you defeat blocks? Can you get off a block? Can we move a defender on a double team block and then allow an entry point for the back? Those are the things that you're going to have the opportunity. And your body and your mind are going to go through a little bit of an adjustment period. It's just psychologically you have a little bit of extra weight. You've been running around in shorts. You have your helmet on. You have the Guardian caps on. Now you're going to add shoulder pads. You're going to add lower pads, knee pads, thigh pads. It's a little bit extra weight. So it's going to take some getting acclimated to and adjusted to. So that'll be probably first and foremost what everybody's thinking about.
Nick, I know you want to run the football better. You have some familiar faces on the offensive line. You have some new faces on the offensive line. This blocking scheme, how different is it from what we saw last year? What are they working on now to change and improve in that category?
Yeah, running the football, it's about the offensive line, it's about the tight ends, it's about the back. So it's about creating entry points, it's about creating angles, it's understanding the front, it's understanding what we're trying to accomplish on the play. So that's where really kind of the focus and the emphasis will be. So in order to be a good offensive team, you have to be able to run the football to some degree. And conversely, on the defensive side of the ball, you have to be able to stop the run. So being able to run the ball, being able to stop the run, and playing physical and playing good in the kicking game, those are components that go into potentially giving you an opportunity to be a decent team. So we need to improve in all areas. I would say that's an area we can only go up, so hopefully we can make some progress. But it's a collective effort. It's the backs, it's the offensive line, it's all those. It's the five of them, it's the fullback if he's involved in the play, it's the tight end. So it's a communicative effort, and it's a collective effort, and it just takes more than one person.
Nick, you mentioned something earlier that maybe fans are not familiar with, the Guardian cap. The NFL has taken a huge stance in safety. And if you're out at practice, you're going to see the players looking a little bit different because it looks like they got a gizmo helmet on and like, wait, what is that? What is the Guardian Cap and why was it brought into play this year?
Yeah, great question. Actually, there's a few teams that kind of experimented last year kind of on a pilot basis, but it's an extra layer of protection on their helmet that goes on over the top of their helmet. So the offensive and defensive line and the linebackers, kind of the front seven, what it does, it helps minimize the impact of contact. So even though it looks like it's a big balloon on their head, it's really for their health and safety. And when there's a collision, so if two players both have the cap and there's some kind of collision, it minimizes the percentage of the actual impact of that hit. So if you have a Guardian Cap with a offensive line blocking a safety, and so even though the defensive back doesn't have the cap, there's still a reduction in the overall impact. So the league has been very proactive on health and safety, and it's really for the benefit of the players. So that was the institution of that particular device.
All right, Nick, we know you need to watch practice. One more for you. Where will you go from here? Where will you watch practice from, and what are you looking for first? Is there an area you want to float to first?
Yeah, once we get to the team periods, stand behind the drills and just kind of watching the play and just kind of following the script, looking at the play call, what's the assignment, who executed what.
Are we taking away from your throwing time right now?
No, I think I might be retired from throwing, so I'm getting too old for that.
Don't say it.
No.
I would say this: whenever we bring a player into workout, if we have to throw to the player, then I'll handle that. So you don't have to worry about that.
I've seen you throw at plenty of pro days.
Loosen up the wing. Let's go.
Get it ready.
All right, Nick, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
it. Nick Caserio, General Manager, Houston Texans. Great to have him on, as always.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to know when we post new content.